Should we cross the pond?
Should we?
Yes, to the US House of Representatives, who have approved a $61 billion aid package for Ukraine.
Yeah, Democrats and Republicans joined together after months of deadlock over renewed American support to help Ukraine fend off Russia's invasion. Now, this was after some objected to sending money overseas instead of spending it on the US-Mexico border.
Well, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he was grateful for the decision, which he said keeps history on the right track.
Meanwhile, Moscow says the passage of the bill would further ruin Ukraine and result in more deaths.
Well, joining us now is Chair of Republican Overseas, Greg Swenson. Good to see you this morning,
Great to be
Greg.
here.
And it's taken months to get to this point, hasn't it?
It really has. So it's in many ways, it's about time. And I think there's a general consensus is that this is great news. Wish it happened earlier.
Why was it being blocked?
I think it was being blocked for good reason. Many Republicans wanted to tie this to the border. And contrary to popular belief where the argument was we need more money for the border. It wasn't actually money. And in the initial proposals had more funding for the border. From the Democrats, that's not the point. They could flip the switch and shut down the border to a certain degree. So it wasn't as much the money going out the door. It's that the Biden administration decided to open the border when he took over in early 21. So if they had this could have happened, this funding could have happened 2 months ago if Biden had agreed to shut down the border like it was closed during the Trump administration.
And yet, how does it fit within, I don't know what your personal view is, but for a lot of Republicans who say we are fed up of being the world's policeman.
Yeah, there is that element of the party. There's an isolationist wing in the Republican Party. It's relatively small. You saw that the majority of Republicans, the great majority of Republicans, voted for all of the funding yesterday. It is this fringe kind of extreme element. It's not necessarily conservative. Sometimes you read, the conservative wing of the party. That's not the case. The conservative movement is very pro-defense. We endorse military spending. We endorse defense spending. Biden has cut the budget in real terms by 2% for the last 2 years. That's dangerous at a time like this. So, yes, there is this fringe wing, and those are the ones that will probably or possibly file a motion to vacate on Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who really pushed this aid bill through.
We've just heard from Zelensky there, who says he's very grateful. What do you think this means for Ukraine, and what message does it send to Putin?
Well, it definitely sends a message that the U.S. is willing to support the defense of Ukraine, and this is a good thing. And even this is very Reagan-esque in many ways, where, the Reagan administration was very much behind our allies, behind democracies fighting for their freedom. You had proxy wars going on at that time in Nicaragua, for example. And so this is a way for the U.S. to get ahead of it, right? We'd rather help Ukraine defend itself now than have a bigger problem later. It's actually cost-effective in many ways.
And of course, that also includes, there's more money going to Israel as a result of this. There's also money going to Taiwan.
That's right. That's right. And then the last element is is forcing TikTok to be sold to an American owner.
Yes.
And that was another priority, but and that was bipartisan in many ways.
So tell us a bit more about this TikTok
Sure.
part of what was going on yesterday.
Yes, there is that threat that TikTok, being owned by the Chinese, tied to the Chinese to the CCP as well as the PRC. There's an argument that is data and potential influence peddling that we just can't live with. And, it's similar to restrictions on media ownership or television ownership by foreign owners. And so this was important it was for the most part bipartisan. And it's a great security risk to have the Chinese owning that kind of data.
Can I ask you about, obviously, now, this very strange situation now, obviously, you're going to have Trump as a presidential candidate. You've got the various court cases which are getting underway now and more to come before November. It's all very complex and highly contentious. You were not a Trump supporter in the run-up to all of this. What's your position now? Would you still like? Would you? I mean, as a Republican, because he's your candidate, would you like to see him get in?
Definitely. And
but no, come on. See, that's what I struggle with.
Sure.
A little bit.
Yeah.
You. I think you were DeSantis.
Yes,
weren't
that's
you?
right. Very much so.
Who was, in a lot of respects, diametrically opposed to a lot of what Trump was standing for. So if you say, well, I wanted DeSantis and not Trump, how can you then go, well, I'm happy for Trump to go in anyway?
Well, for a few reasons. One is it's a binary choice at this point. It's Trump or Biden, and that, to me, is a complete no-brainer. Secondly, Ron DeSantis, in many ways, was similar to Trump. He was drawing from the same part of the electorate. He had that, sort of traditional conservatives, but also the new populist type, and that was the appeal of DeSantis, and that was also the challenge for DeSantis because he was drawing from the same part of the electorate as opposed to Nikki Haley, who was drawing more from the moderate wing or even some Democrats and independents. So Ron DeSantis, in many ways, was like Trump. He's a fighter. He definitely leans toward the populist wing, yet he was much more disciplined. So I thought he'd be a much more effective president than Trump.
Do you not have concerns?
They're not diametrically opposed.
But the discipline part is interesting. Are you not concerned about Trump getting back in with his lack of discipline, that unpredictability?
Stephen, I'm very concerned about it, right? I mean, it's back in 2016, we were concerned about it. I was more concerned at the time that he would govern less as a conservative and more as a populist or a moderate, because he didn't really have a conservative track record. We were pleasantly surprised when he did govern as a conservative. And if you look at his policies and his outcomes, they were very conservative in nature. But the discipline, was a real headwind for the administration. His sort of unfiltered rhetoric. Sometimes it's refreshing, and I think that was one of the reasons he won in 2016. He was saying what people were thinking. But it does create and it leaves a lot of room for chaos. And there was a lot of turnover in the administration. So, yeah, of course I'm concerned about it. And we've seen that even recently. Now, is that going to be a deal breaker? Is that going to make him completely ineffective? I don't know. But I would argue he's probably going to be better at this than he was in the first administration. You've got a lot of support, a lot of think tanks. I'm told from sort of inner circle that the campaign is remarkably more disciplined than it was in 2016. He's had the experience. So we can expect some chaos, and that's just the nature of President Trump. But what we hope for is that he's better at it this time. You've got the Heritage Foundation, for example, putting together what they call the 2025 plan. They are right now putting together a team, putting together, a recruiting platform to make sure that there's effective people in place. One of the things you hear a lot in the media is that, even in the conservative press in America, is that no one that's really skilled or experienced will want to work for him. And that is, I can understand the concept, because he did have problems keeping people in his first administration. But this time, I think that's greatly exaggerated. There's plenty of good people that want to work for him.
Okay, we'll be talking to you a lot over the next
Great to see you,
Really
Stephen.
good to see you.
Thank you very much indeed.